Afternoon, everyone. Thank you for taking the time to come. Over the last few months, we have consistently spoken about our competition and our club's ability to adapt. We've spoken also about ensuring we prioritise the health and welfare of our players, staff and the wider community. The evolving situation around different states and communities has meant we've had to make decisions quickly and the relevant adjustments to ensure the season continues. For this, I can't thank our clubs, our players, coaches, umpires, staff, broadcast and corporate partners enough. We also appreciate the enormous sacrifice the families of travelling players and officials are making in allowing their loved ones to live interstate to ensure we get the competition away for our supporters. Today we make another decision to ensure the health and welfare of everyone and to provide greater certainty to all involved in our game for the coming weeks. Understanding the ongoing situation with COVID-19 in Victoria, Victorian teams will be based out of Queensland for up to 10 weeks as we aim to get the majority of the season complete in that time frame. Victorian teams based in Queensland are fixed to travel interstate to play, will travel to their game and then return back to Queensland. Melbourne, which is currently based in New South Wales, will also move to Queensland next week. We'll also set up a transition hub in Queensland for players from those Victorian clubs who didn't take full playing lists, and the AFL will also accommodate families who did not initially go up with the clubs. If families and loved ones want to join their partners in Queensland, we will facilitate this. This is a challenging period for a lot of families and homes around the country with various restrictions. AFL players and their families are not immune to these challenges. Both top-up players and families will undergo a strict 14-day quarantine in a transition hub before reuniting with teammates and partners. We need to deal with this uncertainty, and this is a clear plan that makes Queensland the base for our competition and provides greater certainty for everyone. We're not able to announce the fixtures yet. However, we are working with the AFLPA and clubs on what compression is possible. At the start of this pandemic, when we first shortened the season and the game time, it was done to provide us with the flexibility and agility to make decisions like the one today. And we must continue to embrace the challenge ahead. I want to thank the AFLPA and Paul Marsh for embracing this challenge and working with us and the clubs as we navigate the changing landscape. We're still working through the final details, but their support and collaboration has been vital. I'd like to thank all the premiers and chief medical officers whose guidance and protocols are what we anchor all our decision making on. I would particularly like to acknowledge Premier Palaszczuk. The State of Queensland has been very accommodating in providing world-class facilities for our clubs. We're in the process of booking accommodation for hundreds of players and officials. I stress none of these measures can happen without strict quarantine protocols and the COVID management plan across all the states that has allowed the 2020 AFL season to proceed. I also do want to acknowledge the people of Victoria. This is a very tough time for individuals, for families and businesses in this state, and our thoughts are with everyone who is dealing with the impact of COVID-19. We know the community worked hard to address the first wave and are confident we will continue to take the measures needed to deal with the virus. I also want to thank Basher Hooley for his leadership in the middle of his own family crisis, to be thinking of the wider community and sending a strong message to be tested if you feel any symptoms. This season is a season like no other, Amongst all the challenges and the changes, the good days and the bad days, we continue to find a way through. We continue to keep our game alive for the fans, for our clubs, and for the thousands and thousands of jobs the competition provides. We persevere because that's what footy does. It always finds a way. Thank you.
You're starting to feel a little bit cornered by all this.
No. I think broadly we're going well, Steve. Today is clearly a big decision, but it's I think it means we're less cornered than potentially were if we didn't make the decision. I think this gives us those two. One word I'm boring the hell out of you with. It gives us optionality. Queensland had 0 cases today. It hasn't had community transmission since May, I don't think, and it gives us flexibility. If we'd stayed here, we reduced and potentially were more cornered than we are now.
What do you do after the conclusion, as you said, those 2 weeks? Did the Melbourne team then come back to reset and then to attempt to get back out if they need to? Or?
I think we said up to 10 weeks, Damo, because I believe that'd be the maximum, which would see us to the end of the home and away.
So Jamie 11 remaining games.
That's what we're talking to, and it may be that we can come back here earlier. But I think what our players and our clubs have said consistently is they want certainty, and I believe we can get the season done with a bit of help from the PA and others in 10 weeks or under. We're working through that with the PA and the clubs, and I want to be open with the players to say that's what we're looking at, the home and away season. It may be we can come back earlier than not, but by the decisions we've taken today about families and other players, people can plan around that, and it'll give us, to Steve's point, it'll give us more optionality rather than less.
What has been the reception from the PA?
Paul's been good. I mean, I think people are seeing what's going on here. They understand the challenges. We're all locked in our homes in a very tough time for Victorians. Paul Marsh lives here, the PA lives here. The players and their families they're not immune to it. I think people understand the need for this, and he's been very fair in his discussions.
Do you expect a lot of players to support be able to halt the extended period away?
No, well, some may not, but I think the ability now to take families and partners and to be in Queensland is once they transition through quarantine, that it's an environment that's with your club, but also giving you some freedom and got your personal support networks with you. I think I'm confident that players will embrace that. It might not be for everyone, and we completely understand if it's not.
Are there any restrictions on how many family members can go in each club, or is it just button?
There's some criteria, Rob, around clearly kids, those who've been living with partners, those in longer-term relationships, and then there's a bit of a catch-all for those individual circumstances. So it's not for someone who's had a partner for a few weeks, but anything that's of substance, and there's people will work through that criteria. But we're not going to be silly about this. This is actually about making a decision that's got big forward implications for the game, for the players, the officials, and their families, and we've made provisions to deal with that. I think there's a grand final question. There is no decision made on the grand final. This is about the home and away season. Clearly people will draw bows, but my clearest position is to say the grand final is at the MCG until there are circumstances and reasons that it can't be, and then we'll make a different decision then. But we're not talking about that today.
What's your theory yourself? You've always said it was probably to this point it would be the traditional structure. Is that still?
That's the thinking today, Dame. I mean, we keep moving, but our thinking today is it's call it 10 weeks away, 11 weeks away. Things move very quickly, as we've seen. So when we have, when we think we need to make that decision with all the information in front of you, if things change, we'll let you know. But at the moment, this is about the home and away season.
Given how long the away players wait for their families, is there any thought that it's possible to Jen down even further so they're only have to be away for 7 or 8 weeks so they can get the game?
Clearly, those discussions are ongoing with clubs and players. I mean, the PA have got a view on that, the players will, and the clubs. That is something I don't think it's a negotiation. I think we've all got motivations to be, do this as expeditiously as possible. So if the players can do it and the clubs can make it work, we'll compress. So up to 10 weeks, and it may be less, and we'll work through that. Absolutely.
There's been an incredible financial burden, obviously, just to this point, cuts here, cuts at clubs, all the rest of it. We've read about how much this model is costing the league each and every week.
How much is it?
I think it was reported as $3 million per week as a minimum.
I'll take that.
Can the game bear this? What is it, at least another 10 weeks? Or
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm not... this is financially challenging for our industry, and we're making obviously tough decisions. But we've got a big balance sheet. We've got great broadcast partners, incredible support from our sponsors. So I feel very good about where we're at, and the hard decisions that have been made over the previous months. This is obviously more expensive than the alternative, but it's manageable. And we've had a commission that have made prudent decisions over 10 to 15 years. We've got a big balance sheet behind us. We've got great support from NAB and the ANZ, and we've got a line of credit. We have, recast our business model over the last 3 or 4 months. So we've made the tough calls, and our clubs have, and our players have. And as a collective, the states, the AFL, the clubs, the players, we made the tough calls that sees our P&L and our balance sheet ready to deal with this. So, we're real, it'll be challenging, but we're okay.
So over 10 weeks, Gill, is $3 million a year the right figure, or is it more?
$3 million a year, I'll take that too.
$3 million. So tell us how much it is.
It's very, it depends how many teams, Rob. I'm being slightly flippant, but that's in the ballpark per week. Clubs, move around, and there may be more, there may be less, but that's broadly a number.
How close were you monitoring the situation in Sydney with the outbreaks there? What are the contingencies for the clubs there to expect games to continue to the ground?
I think the New South Wales government and others, they're confident in their contact tracing and their protocols. We won't second guess them. We haven't done that at all. We listen to the advice of the state government, the federal government, and the health officers. And at the moment, they're confident that where this is going. But obviously, we've got a watching brief like everyone else.
The games in Queensland so far have been played in South East Queensland. We'll push your games up to North Queensland now to Western Lobe and the Gabba.
Yeah. So short answer, yes, it's possible we're playing in North Queensland, absolutely, Cairns. I've got a lot of my management team want to oversee a game in Port Douglas. It doesn't rule out us playing games from Queensland in Northern Territory or Tasmania, so we'll continue to pick up conversations with those governments. So I want to be clear about that we are able to, under the right circumstances, if with agreement with those governments, fulfil agreements in those states, and we're in ongoing discussions. So it's about Melbourne teams now and their families making the decision that they'll be based in Queensland for potentially all of the home and away season, to give us all of that options, all of those options.
The WA hardball teams continue to roll through.
Yeah, so I think they've announced the next couple of teams, and that's been mapped out, and there's a forward planning that has a commitment in Western Australia for at least next 7 weeks. Queensland government, we'd love them to. They've been very helpful, and we've got a partnership of sorts. But the reality is, the vast majority of this is the AFL industry, and it's ours to put on, and we're going okay. Grand final is obviously everyone keeps going to the grand final. I think the Premier has said they love the grand final. I think the Western Australians are pretty clear they would. I know the South Australians would, and I'm pretty comfortable. The New South Wales government and people of New South Wales would like the grand final as well. At the moment, we're focused on the next 100 games of our season. We are in a good position going forward with this decision, and the partnership and united approach of our players and our clubs. We're going to have bits and pieces here and there, but this is a decision that lets us move along.